Are your labels super clear and obvious, but everyone's always asking you, where's my coffee? Where's my cereal? In this video, I'm breaking down why even those Pinterest perfect, super smart, super logical labels still fail, and how to fix it with very little effort. Your brain thinks in shortcuts, not categories. It doesn't go, oats equals grain, grain equals pantry, done. Instead, your brain goes, where's that thing? I used it last Tuesday. It was in that jar with the red lid. I think it was next to the bread. It should go in this bin, but it's not, so now I'm really annoyed. But wait, maybe you bake with oats, so they go in baking. Or maybe they're your toddler's go-to breakfast, so they go in kids' breakfast. Or maybe you buy 5 different kinds of oats, so they get their own bin labeled oats. Meanwhile, your label says grains. Logical, sure. Helpful? Not really. You're not labeling the oats, you're labeling your emotional memory of the oats. And that memory only exists in your head. Your husband didn't label that bin, your kid didn't load that shelf. They have no context. So what you think you're labeling, you think is logical, it's actually just a personal bookmark, and everyone else is reading a different book, unfortunately. Technically, all of those are right and wrong at the same time. That's the problem. You're not labeling the item, you're labeling your emotional memory of the item. And that memory only exists in your head. The second someone else tries to put something away, or even worse, try to find something, they're stuck. They're not inefficient, they're not lazy, they're not unhelpful, they're not ruining all of your hard work, they're just not you. The system wasn't built for them. They have no memory attached to it, and their brain isn't pulling from your logic, because in reality, your logic isn't logic. It's emotional tags, it's muscle memory, not clean categories. Here's where it gets worse. When you create a broad category label like grains or backstock, it might feel perfectly logical to you, but your brain is holding invisible context. You remember what was in that bin last week. You know what you meant by backstock. You know where you were standing when you labeled it, but no one else has that context, not even future you. Now you've got a home full of bins that only one person can sometimes use correctly. That's not a system, it's a silo. It's doomed for failure. This is why 90% of labeling systems break. They weren't designed for memory retrieval, they were designed for memory projection. By memory projection, I mean you think you're labeling something correctly, but really you're labeling your memory of the item. And the second that memory fades or someone else enters the room, the system breaks. But your brain doesn't work that way, and neither does anyone else's. But when you come back next week, that logic's gone. The emotional tag has faded. And now your own label confuses you. You don't need prettier labels, you need labels that trigger retrieval, fast, obvious, brain aligned. If you or someone in your family has ADHD, this whole labeling thing just got a million times harder. We don't store items in folders, we store them in scenes and feelings. We're not just thinking like normal people, where did I put this last? We're thinking, ooh, that was a really pretty bin. I was starving when I grabbed this last time. I poured a glass of wine right after I forgot what I did with it. My dogs were barking while I was trying to find it. Then my friend called. I also was trying to listen to a podcast at the same time while I was on the phone with them. So all of this is going through my head while I'm trying to find this thing. Then I find a crumb on the floor, and before you know it, I'm out in the garage cleaning the inside of my glove box and forgot that I was even looking for anything in the first place. Ugh. Chaos. It's sensory overload nonstop. A neurotypical brain recalls, I used this last week, it looked like this, and it goes here. An ADHD brain recalls, I felt this, it triggered something. The entire experience was attached to it. So if your system relies on cold, clean logic, it's not neutral, it's actually kind of punishing in a way. I'm not saying I'm being punished, but it's not gonna work. It's asking a sensory overloaded tornado of a brain to act like a filing cabinet, and it's just not how our brain works. Our brains can't work like filing cabinets, that's the problem. It's not the clutter that breaks you down, it's the decisions. What's actually in that bin? Where did this go? Those are tiny little micro decisions. Your brain only has so many of those in a day. It's like a battery, and labeling systems that make you guess, pause, or overthink, they drain your battery quickly. That's decision fatigue. It's the reason why your super cute labeling system works for 2 weeks and then falls apart. Because you're not just organizing one item, you're solving an entire tiny riddle every single time. And when your brain is already juggling work, kids, dinner, laundry, life, you just stop playing the game. You don't have time for that game. You shove it in the wrong bin. You tell yourself, oh, I'll fix it later. You stop putting things away at all, or just shove it somewhere else, not because you're messy, because you're exhausted. All of these decisions compound and make us less effective in other areas of life. If we cut down on all these little micro decisions that are a waste of precious brain space, we'll make ourselves more effective in other, more important areas. So if your system requires you to remember the logic every time, it's not a system, it's a pop quiz that your brain didn't study for. Now that we've brain dumped all the psychology of the problem, what the heck are we supposed to do about all of this? We shouldn't organize for the version of you who's motivated, well-rested, holding a label maker like a Pinterest warrior. We should organize for the version of you that's already tired, already distracted, already won, where does this go away before shoving it in a junk drawer? Because when your system is brain-proof, your bins still work, your labels still land. And your husband or your kids, they'll never ask you where anything is again. And if they do, you can just point over there from the couch. So now that we know why most labeling systems fail and why your brain and your family's brains keep ignoring them, let's fix it. Starting with the easiest, most overlooked game changer. Be specific, or be sorry. Here's a mistake we made early on, broad labels. Our professional organizers had cute little basket clips that said stuff like grains or bread, just one word, one category name. Sounds fine, right? Well, what's a grain to you and what's grain to me? Oats go in the grains. To my husband, oats go in the cereal. So guess what happened? Stuff kept ending up in the wrong places, or we both couldn't find things based on what category we thought something should go in. Snacks is not specific. Office stuff is not specific. If your label makes you guess, it's not helping, it's hurting. Your label should trigger the item in your brain before you open the bin. So now your labels are specific, amazing. But what if your bin still feels like a black hole? You open it and you think, wait, what did I even put in here? That's because your brain doesn't just want a label, it wants a preview without ever opening the bin. So that leads me to tip number 2. My rule is labels should list every single item in the bin, not the category. Sure, it can have the category, but under the category, it needs to have the contents, every single item. And here's the best part. You can keep adding labels as you go. I didn't want to make a whole new basket for bananas, so I just added bananas label onto an existing bin right underneath. Done. It took 39 seconds. And if you have kids who never know where things go, this helps prevent them from totally destroying your system. I just use my label maker for this. I used to use the Dymo, the one that spits out that little strip with the super basic font. It worked, but it felt kind of plain. And honestly, I would forget what the label was even for because it just didn't stand out. And the font was also super tiny. It was hard to read from a distance. There was only one size of paper. It was like this tape paper. Now I use this one. And yes, I labeled my label maker because one of my best friends did that and I thought it was hilarious. When you first get a new label maker, you have to immediately label something and it's the first thing you see in case anyone's confused. No confusion now. Very obvious, this is my label maker. I don't even need my name on it. You just need to know it's label maker. I'm obsessed. I print, slap, done. It allows me to use big and small labels so I can put a little list and change the font, the size. So cute. I think it's like 30 bucks on Amazon. Now let me say this before I go any further. You don't need a bin for every single thing. You don't need your kitchen to look like a showroom, and you definitely don't need to spend a fortune on custom drawers or matching containers. The goal isn't more stuff, the goal is clarity. So if you've got deep cabinets or awkward shelves, don't stress. I keep it simple and this still works. Kitchen cabinets, like the underneath the counter ones that are really deep, label everything. I didn't want to spend money on those fancy, pull-out drawers, and I didn't want to install them. So I went really simple. I just used clear bins for all the small stuff like cheese graters, veggie chopper thingies, whatever they're called. And then for the big stuff like a Vitamix or the NutriBullet, I just labeled the actual shelf itself. Now we're not on our hands and knees crawling down on the floor, wondering where the last person shoved the Instapot in this deep cabinet in the back behind all the cheese graters. This is where the Instapot goes. Here's why this is a game changer. Bins move, shelves don't. Labeling the shelf itself, no matter what bin you're using, you always know what's supposed to go there. Think of it like a grocery store. They don't label the cans, they label the shelf, they label the aisles. Even if someone takes a bin out, reorganizes it, or swaps it entirely, you still have a system that makes sense. It makes the system so obvious that you can't mess it up. You've probably been labeling with the best of intentions, maybe even beautifully, but now you know why your system might still be breaking. It's not your effort, it's not your stuff. Brains don't think or work in perfect categories. They thrive and think in emotion, association, and chaos. So the fix? Not more bins, not prettier font, although prettier font does make it more fun. Clarity, simplicity, retrieval, not memory projection. Because when your system actually works for how people think, you get to spend less time organizing, less time looking for stuff, less time explaining where things are, and less time deciding where to put things away, and more time just living your best life. If that hit you right in the label maker guilt, and you suddenly feel the urge to rip labels off every bin in your house and label everything you own, including your label maker at 11 p.m., then you're gonna love the next video in this series. We're talking about bins, not just which ones to buy, but why some bins are actually wrecking your system. Lids that create friction, bins that eat your stuff, pretty containers that function like black holes. So if you wanna be notified when the next episode is out, hit that subscribe button, click that bell, print a label with a reminder on your label maker. Whatever works. We're not here to make things look organized or look Pinterest perfect. We're here to make things that actually work for your brain and your real life. Wink.